It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 31, looking at the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Congo DR. Part 1, the candidates. Here we go! Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 31 on the players of the 2025 African Cup. This episode covers Congo DR's players. Just a note on where we're at in our media casts. We are publishing previews of the groups and teams of the 2025 African Cup at the same time as this series on the players is being released. Last summer, we previewed the groups, teams, and players for the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup, and we also did a media cast introducing ourselves. After this African Cup, we will tackle the massive 48-team World Cup in the summer of 2026. So we plan to start publishing those in the springtime of 2026. We're doing this media cast on the players in two parts. Part 1 here is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We examine the participation of players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors. And we categorize them into definite, likely, possible but unlikely, and seemingly off the squad. And we'll go into more details on the players we think likely to reach the final squad, and less, perhaps just even the names of players unlikely to get there. Part 2 will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad selected. That'll probably be in mid-September. And at that time, we'll go back over the list that we create here today and see who made it and who didn't. And we'll also cover things like injuries and surprise selections. So this episode has 3 sections. Section 1, we're going to give you some information about the team. Yes, and in section 2, that's the main part. We look at the candidates for each position and their likelihood of selection. And in section 3, we will summarize and conclude, especially focusing on injuries to keep an eye on. All right, let's begin then. So section 1, some information on the team. We are going to begin with club affiliations here. And Congo DR has, I just want to add this, these club affiliation sections are probably more interesting in comparison with each other. So if you compare one I'm going to present here with Senegal, the other team in the group, and then with Botswana and Benin, you'll see kind of some interesting patterns here. Anyway, generally, Congo DR has a decent league, a couple of good teams there, but generally players have to move out of that league. So they have no players here playing for domestic teams, and indeed no players in the kind of smaller African leagues around them. For some of the bigger African leagues and Asian leagues, though, they do have some players with those. That would be leagues like Morocco and Egypt there, and they also have a player playing in the UAE. So that makes up about 5 to 10% of the squad there. The numbers aren't rigorously accurate here, more of an estimate. Then we move on to small to mid-sized clubs, mostly in Europe. And that makes up about 20% of the team. And just to give you one example, a team in Armenia called Noah. So these will generally be teams that the average soccer fan really wouldn't have heard of or really be familiar with. However, bigger clubs in Europe, these would be teams that people are familiar with. They make up about 70% of the Congo DR team. Players playing for teams like Lille in France, West Ham in England, or Genk in Belgium. As far as elite clubs go, though, they really don't have any playing for elite clubs. Probably the topmost clubs we see on Congo DR's team would be Newcastle in England and Villarreal in Spain, kind of just second, just off the top level or elite clubs there. And then actually for Congo DR, we have about 5% of players who are unattached. I think that's three or four players who are unattached. Perhaps they're waiting for the African Cup to see if they can make an impression there and get onto a good team. So there we have it. Look at their club affiliations. Let's move on to the recent games that we'll be looking at. We will be looking at the 2023 African Cup. That's kind of where our study will begin, where we begin with the narratives on each of the position. However, that is not included in the participation count. They reached the third, fourth place match in that tournament, so 7 games there in January and February of 2024. But again, that won't be part of the count. The first part of the count begins after that African Cup, but unlike most teams they didn't play any friendlies. Most teams had 2 friendlies in March of 2024, but Congo DR did not have any games in March of 2024. So the first games that we'll be looking at will be the 2026 World Cup qualifiers in June of 2024. So 2 games there. And then in the fall of 2024, from September to November, 6 games of 2025 African Cup qualifying. So that is the start and the beginning of qualifying for this, the start and the end of qualifying for this cup. All games played there in the fall of 2024. Moving into 2025, they had 2 games in March of 2025. Those were World Cup qualifiers. And in June of 2025, they played 2 friendlies. I might add that the second of those friendlies was fairly experimentative for Congo DR. And finally, in the fall of 2026, we have World Cup qualifying matches, the conclusion of the group stage there. So 2 games in September, 2 games in October. And that's the set of games we'll be looking at. I'll say that they had the same manager throughout this whole period. And so good consistency there. And now, they did play 2 games in November, the qualifying playoff games. Those have been played at the time we're doing this recording, but it wasn't part of our preparation for part 1 of this. Rather, we prefer to save them for part 2 to see who has played recent games and help us to predict who the starters are going to be. So we're going to save those 2 games and not include them in the count here. Let's take a look at formations for the team, not in any great detail, rather in kind of a summary. So they used 4 different formations over the period, and we'll tell you the 2 main ones they used, a 4-3-3 formation, and then a 4-2-3-1 formation. So the 4-3-3 was in 50% of their games overall, 8 out of 16 games, and the 4-2-3-1 in 5 out of 16 games. And for the other 3 games, they used 2 different formations, which we won't get into. But let's do a bit of analysis on this and talk about what it boils down to. So what it boils down to is actually a 2-man central defense in all of the games during this period. So they never used a 3-man central defense here. Also up top, a single forward was used in 87% of the games, and then a 2-man forward line in 13% of the games. So that is 2 out of the 16 games they went with 2 forwards. Otherwise, it was just 1 forward. We'll talk about the central midfield when we get here, but you can see that from what I presented, 4-3-3 formation 50% of the time, that they used a 3-man midfield quite a bit there. Okay, the last order of business here is their upcoming games. Well, as we've said, the 2 November games have been played, and Congo DR did fabulously there. On November 13th, they played the semi-final playoff game for Africa in Morocco, or both of these games in Morocco, and there they beat Cameroon 1-0, Chancel Mbemba scoring a late goal to get them through there. And then they went on to the final and faced Nigeria, where they tied 1-1 on penalties. Tied 1-1 and won 4-3 on penalties. So now they'll be going on to play. I'll tell you when we get to the manager section how it proceeds after this. But we actually are not so much interested in the results there as we are in the formations. So as I said, we'll be using those 2 games to look at the formations in part 2. So that completes section 1 here, and we move on to our main order of business, looking at the candidates and their likelihood of making it, and giving you a bit of biographical information on the main players especially. Let's begin with managers, and the current manager is Sebastian De Saber, and he replaced Argentinian manager Hector Cooper. So let's tell you the story before we take a closer look at Sebastian De Saber there. De Saber became manager in August of 2022, so he's been in charge of the team for quite a while now. He replaced Argentinian manager Hector Cooper, who had in March lost to Morocco in the final knockout round of World Cup 2022 qualifying. He didn't get fired over that. But in June, he lost their first 2 games of African Cup 2023 qualifying. That was a game at home to Gabon, and then an away game to Sudan. And so now they were in danger of not reaching their second African Cup in a row. So it's really those 2 games to begin African Cup qualifying that cost Cooper his job. And De Saber came in and won the last 4 games of qualifying, so they did reach the cup, and as we've seen, they finished 4th in the tournament, so a fantastic result for them there. De Saber also guided them through qualification for the World Cup 2026, and as we've seen, they not only reached the final playoffs there, but won both games to reach an intercontinental playoff. So Congo DR's path to the cup will now be facing the winner of Jamaica versus New Caledonia for a spot in the World Cup. So that is quite doable. Probably Jamaica would win that game. But I would say that Congo DR has a good chance of beating Jamaica and reaching the World Cup. Okay, so Sebastian De Saber has done very well with the team. Let's take a look at him. He is a Frenchman, and reportedly was a player that there's not any information I can find about his playing career. So if he was a player, it was a pretty minor level. So he's a manager here with Congo DR, as we've seen since 2022. He's coached a couple of other international teams there. He was the manager of Uganda from 2017 to 19, and he got them to the African Cup in 2019. He was also manager of Mauritania in 2014, but didn't get them to any cup. Besides that, he's managed several clubs in countries all over the place, but especially in Africa. That seems to be his specialty. Wydad Casablanca in Morocco, Pyramids in Egypt, Ismaili in Egypt, and Esperance in Tunisia. All of those are fairly big teams there, and he's also coached in Cameroon and Ivory Coast. So good experience, especially in Africa, Sebastian De Saber, and 2 tournaments under his belt already, the 2019 and 2023 African Cups, and this will be his 3rd tournament. So Sebastian De Saber, the manager, we really doubt they would get rid of him before the tournament. And so, yes, but we're not dealing with who we think are going to be. Well, I don't know. I want to exit from this topic. I'm going to move on to goalkeepers. And we'll begin by naming the candidates, nominating the candidates here, and telling you what level they're at. Then we're going to do a narrative on the position, kind of put the characters into the story, as it were. And then we will come back and take a closer look at the main players. So for goalkeepers, we have at the definite level, Lionel Mpasi, or Lionel Mpasi. And at the two candidates at the likely level, the first one, Dimitri Berthold and Timothy Fayulu. And no candidates at the possible but unlikely level, so we go straight down to players seemingly off the squad. The first one is Esdras Kabamba, and the second one, Baggio Siadi. Now, just for YouTube watchers, I'll just explain the colors here. If a player's name is in black script, that means they have been through a tournament. If it's in light gray, it means they have not been through a tournament. And if it is in orange, and this is a new feature here, that means they're new to the team. So we have Timothy Fayulu new to the team, or Timothy Fayulu, sorry. And then Esdras Kabamba has been around for at least a little while, but has not gone through a tournament. Okay, let's go to the narrative, the position of goalkeepers over the past 2 years. Lionel Mpasi was the starting keeper in the African Cup in January of 2024 there. He played all 7 games, but they used game 7, the third, fourth place match there, as a B team game. So he was replaced by backup keeper Dimitri Berthold for that one. The third string keeper in the tournament was Baggio Siadi, but he has not been called up since the Cup. Mpasi did not remain the starting keeper after the Cup. Actually, Dimitri Berthold took over as starter and played almost all of the games up until September of 2024. He was on the bench for 2 games, though, and Mpasi replaced him once, and Timothy Fayulu deputized in June of 2024. Mpasi did come back, though, to start the last 2 games in October of 2025. So it's a bit unclear who the starter is. And perhaps when we look at those November games, we'll get a better hint of who to expect as the starter in the Cup. Let's take a look at the players then, beginning with Lionel Mpasi. He's been with Congo DR since 2022 with 21 caps, and he is 31 years old, and he plays for Le Havre in France. He was actually born in France. That's a new move, or a recent move, to Le Havre. He was with Rodez in France for 9 years before that, so that's his main club. He also played for Paris Saint-Germain youth club as part of his youth career. And Mpasi's first tournament was the last one in the 2023 African Cup there. As we saw, he was the starter for all but 1 game. However, over the recent period, he only started 3 of the games, and that does include the last 2. Started 3 of their 16 games, and he was on the bench for 11 and not selected for 2 matches. Those were the first 2 matches after the Cup. So Lionel Mpasi, a definite candidate to reach the squad. Dimitri Berthold is the first of our likely candidates. He's been with the team since 2023 with 15 caps and no goals, and is 27 years old. However, he is unattached, and maybe that is the reason he was not selected for the October games. Often that is the case if a player is unattached to a club. But prior to June 2025, he was with Montpellier in France. He has a long history with them, including going back to his youth club all the way back to 2011. Berthold is a French-born player, as many on Congo DR, and played for French underage teams, actually. And the 2023 African Cup was also his first tournament, and as we saw, he appeared in Game 7, the B team game, there. He was the second string keeper. However, over the recent period, he started 12 of their 18 games, and was on the bench for 4 others. So actually, I should have him as a definite candidate here, and I'm going to move him up. Okay, so that makes Timothy Fayula the only candidate at the likely level, and he's brand new to the team since 2025 with just 1 cap there, and he plays for Sion in Switzerland since 2018. I didn't say his age, he's 26 years old. Playing for Sion in Switzerland, but he is actually the player on loan to Noah in Armenia since 2025. Timothy Fayulu actually had appeared on the bench 3 times in 2019 and 2020. So he returned after a more than 3.5-year absence in June of 2024, and he started 1 of their games and was on the bench for 14 others. So just 1 match that he wasn't selected for over this period. So Timothy Fayulu, perhaps not as new as the text color his name is in indicates, but he did get his first cap just this year. All the way down to the seemingly off the squad players, we have Estras Kabamba, and we won't say much about him. He was selected for the 2023 preliminary squad there, but last appeared on the bench in June of 2024. The other seemingly off the squad player, Baggio Siadi, as we saw, was the 3rd string keeper in the African 2023 Cup. That was his only tournament, and that was also the last time he was called up to the squad. So Biagi Siadi seemingly off the squad now. Okay, that's it for goalkeepers, and we move on to defence. And central defenders specifically. So once again, I'll remind you that it is always a 2-man position for Congo DR over this period. Never did they use a 3-man central defense. In terms of candidates, we begin with Chancel Mbemba. He is a definite candidate and captain of the team. And next we have a likely candidate in Dylan Bachubinsika. And another, actually 3 likely candidates here. The second is Axel Tuanzebe. And the third one, Rocky Bushiri. We have 1 at the possible but unlikely level, and that is Henoch Inonga, or Henoch Inonga Baka, I sometimes see his name as. And that's it. That's all we have. That is a very thin central defense. Let's see how they get by with just really 4 players. With the narrative, which begins in the Cup, Chancel Mbemba started all 6 games of the 2023 African Cup in January of 2024. His partner rotated between Henoch Inonga, who started 4 games, and Dylan Bachubinsika, who started 3 games. After the Cup, Mbemba continued to start for all but 1 game over the period. His partner was consistently Inonga through all of the June and fall 2024 games. However, Inonga was on the bench for the March 2025 games and then not called up after that. Bachubinsika took over as Mbemba's partner and started all but 1 of the games up until September of 2025. And he was replaced by Bushiri in that game. Bushiri had 1 other start, actually, when Mbemba played as a right back in March of 2025. For the last game, or for the last 2 games, Axel Tuanzebe became the partner of Mbemba. Tuanzebe had actually started 3 games as a right back, in June and September of 2024, but he had not been called up after that until returning to start these two games alongside Chancel Mbemba in October, just recently. And we're thinking perhaps his move to the Premier League, to the English Premier League, was part of the reason he became a starter. Okay, let's take a look at the candidates then. Chancel Mbemba actually celebrated his 100th cap with that semi-final playoff game where he got the winning goal late, so that was quite a celebration. Mbemba has been with the team since 2012 then, and actually up to October of this year had 99 caps and 7 goals to his name, and he's 31 years old. He plays for Lille in France since 2025. That's a recent move from Marseille, but he's played for some pretty big clubs in various countries: Porto in Portugal, Newcastle in England, and Anderlecht in Belgium. Chancel Mbemba's first tournament was the 2013 African Cup, and he's been a part of every cup since, becoming captain for the 2023 African Cup there. And over the recent period, as we saw, he started 15 of their 16 games. So a real statue in rock at the back there. He was on the bench for the one other game. And as we saw, he did start one game as a right back as well. That's part of the 15-game count. On to our, now definite candidate. No, I made a mistake there. On to our first likely candidate, Dylan Bachubinsika. He's been with Congo DR since 2023 and has 15 caps and 1 goal. He's 29 years old and plays for Saint Etienne in France since 2023. He was born in France and also played for underage teams for France there. Saint Etienne since 2023, and smaller clubs before that, which I won't get into, but he was part of Paris Saint-Germain Youth Club there in his youth. His first tournament, Bachubinsika, was in the 2023 African Cup. He subbed into game 2 at halftime, and then, as we saw, started 3 games towards the end of the tournament there, and scored one of their goals in African Cup qualifying for this tournament. That was actually a late tying goal in the final game at home. But Ethiopia actually scored after that, so it wasn't a game winner. He started 6 of their 16 games over the recent period and was on the bench for 7, but not selected for 3 of the matches. So Bachubinsika, a likely candidate here. Next, we have Alex Tuanzebe. He's been with Congo DR since 2024 with 7 caps and no goals. He's 28 years old, so kind of joined the team quite late there. He plays for Burnley in England since 2025, and he was with Ipswich in England before that. He was also with Manchester United from 2015 to 23, but was mostly loaned out by them. Tuanzebe was selected for the preliminary squad for the 2023 African Cup, but didn't make the final cut there. He got his first start in June of 2024 and started 6 of their remaining 16 games. I said he had 7 caps, so I'm not sure. He might have been subbed in for one or something. I have to double check that. Anyway, 3 of his games were in June and September 2024, where he started as a right back. So only has a couple of starts here as a central defender. He was injured for 2 of the games and not selected for 8 games over the period. So hasn't fully worked its way back into the squad, but the 2 starts in October are pretty promising. Again, perhaps coming because he is now with a team in the English Premier League. The third likely candidate is Rocky Bushiri, and he's been with the team since 2023 And well, I have one cap here, but I think that is inaccurate too, because you'll see he got 3 games over this period. Anyway, he doesn't have a lot of caps for the national team, and he's been with Congo DR since 2023 and is 26 years old. He plays for Hibernian in Scotland and has played for Norwich in England, but most of his teams were actually in Belgium because he was born in Belgium and played for their underage teams there. He too got his first tournament in the African Cup in 2023 on the roster, but saw no action there. But over the recent period started 3 of their 16 games and was on the bench for 11 and not selected for 2 others. So sorry, I got his overall cap count wrong there, but it's at least 3 caps there. Next and finally, we have Enoch Inonga, and he's possible but unlikely now. He's been with the team since 2021 with 27 caps. But as we said, he's or I don't think I said, he is unattached also. It was one of the goalies that was unattached as well. And that might be part of the reason he's not been selected. But we did see he was a co-starter alongside Chancel Mbemba for half of the games, and he also played half of the games over this period. He played the first 8 of their 16 games, then he was on the bench for 2, and then not selected for the last 6 matches. So that is from June onwards, so perhaps that's when he separated from his team. No, he separated from his team in September 2025. So hard to say if that's the reason, but Enoch Inonga, 32 years old now, so not sure he'll make it back onto the squad. Okay, that's it for central defenders. Let's move on to left backs here and begin with our 2 candidates at the definite level. In fact, that's all we have over here is these 2 candidates. The first one, Arthur Masuaku, and then Joris Kayembe. So these are the 2 candidates, and because of that, the summary is quite short. Here in the Cup, Arthur Masuaku was the starter, but Joris Kayembe got the nod in Game 7. Again, that's a B team game that they put out there, giving players like Joris Kayembe a chance to get on the field. Masuaku continued to start throughout the period, although he was on the bench for 3 games and absent for 1. And every time he was not the starter, Kayembe replaced him. So pretty clear over here. Masuaku is the starter, Kayembe is the backup, but the only spanner in the works is an injury tag on Kayembe, which I'll tell you about when we talk about his career information. But again, with Arthur Masuaku, he's been with the team since 2018. Actually, only just 39 caps for them over that time and 3 goals, so not as many as one might think. And he's 32 years old. Recently moved to Sunderland in England since 2025, but was with Besiktas in Turkey for a couple of years before that, having moved from West Ham in England, where he was actually for quite a while, for 7 years there. He's born in France, also played for underage teams for France, and his first tournament, Masuaku, was the 2019 African Cup there. He started and finished Game 1, but then was relegated to the bench for the rest of the tournament. So seems in his early years with the team, he didn't get that many starts. By the time the African Cup 2023 came around, we saw he was the starter and started 6 of the 7 games. Also, over the recent period here, Masuaku started 11 of the 16 games and was subbed in for 1, but on the bench for 3 and not selected for 1 match there. But a definite candidate here, especially since Joris Kayembe may be out with a hamstring injury since around November 23rd with an unknown return date. So hamstring injuries can be short-term, but often they're long-term injuries. So it doesn't look that hopeful for Joris Kayembe, but we will update that in part two. Joris Kayembe has been with Congo DR since 2023, and he's 31 years old. And he also actually played 2 games for Belgium in 2020. He was born in Belgium and played for their youth teams there, but they mustn't have been kind of tournament-related games because otherwise he wouldn't have been allowed to move. Anyway, he's still playing for a team in Belgium, Genk in Belgium, since 2023, but he has played in France for Nantes and in Portugal for Porto as well there. And the 2023 African Cup was his first tournament. And as we saw, he got a start in the B team game there. So 1 start in the Cup. He did sub into a game as well. So Joris Kayembe, over this period, started 5 of their 16 games and was subbed in for 6 games also and on the bench for the 4 others. So we have him as a definite candidate because he is always called up. However, we will have to see how that injury develops there. Okay, over to the right side, we also have 2 definite candidates here. The first one is Gideon Kalulu. And then we have Aaron Wan-Bissaka joining the team. His name is in orange because he just joined recently. We'll let you know the details on that. Over here, we also have Stephen Kapuadi. He's actually coded as a central defender, but we move him over here because his only start in the period was as a right back, and he is at the possible level. And we have a player at the possible but unlikely level. That's Brian Bayei. And then 1 player seemingly off the squad, Peter Kioso, who basically just recently popped his head in and then was out again. And we'll tell you when we get to the player biographies. But let's go to the narrative of the position over the year. So just like on the left, Gideon Kalulu started all games in the Cup, except for game 7 there, the B team game where he was replaced by Brian Bayeye. However, Bayeye saw only 1 appearance on the bench after the Cup, so has not been a factor since. Kalulu, Gideon Kalulu, the starter in the Cup, remained the starter all the way up until June 2025, although he only started about half of those games. He was on the bench for the first 3 of, or for 3 of the first 4 games. And that's when central defender Alex Tuanzebe was basically tried out in the position, despite being coded as a central defender. Kalulu returned to the position, but then later was out injured for 2 games. That was in March of 2025. And in that case, it was out of position players, central defender Chancellor Mbemba and left back Joris Kayembe replacing him for those 2 games. However, in September 2025, a serious challenge to Kalulu's starting position came in the form of Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I don't know what I'm talking about. Aaron Wan-Bissaka. He came into basically threw his lot in with Congo DR and immediately became the starter in the position. He started all of the fall 2025 games, and I would say probably will hold on to the position. But anyway, let's look. Gideon Kalulu was the starter. He's been with Congo DR since, or the national team since 2020 with 24 caps and no goals. He's 28 years old. And he was born in France, but plays for Aris Limassol in Cyprus. That's a recent move since 2025. Otherwise, all of his clubs have been in France. He moved from Lorient in France, where he was from 2022 to 25, and has also played for Lyon in France as well. His tournament, first tournament, was the 2023 African Cup. He started and finished 6 of the 7 games there, as we saw. Over the recent period, though, Gideon Kalulu has only started 6 of the 16 games. He was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 5. And in fact, the only 2 matches he wasn't called up for was because he was injured. So always selected. So he hasn't lost his seat on the squad, just his starting position. 2, our other definite candidate, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So Aaron Wan-Bissaka with Congo DR then since 2025. I have him down with 6 caps here, but I think that's got to be 4. 4 caps, and he's 28 years old. He's currently with West Ham in England since 2024, but fans will recognize him as a Manchester United player from 2019 to 24 and with Crystal Palace before that. Aaron Wan-Bissaka was born in England. He did play for England underage teams there. He also did play for Congo DR under 23 team, though, which is quite interesting. And Aaron Wan-Bissaka got his first cap in September of 2025 and started all 4 of their remaining games there, as we saw. Next, we have Steve Capuadi, the central defender there. And he's been with Congo DR since 2025 with just 1 cap. He's 27 years old, though, and plays for Legia Warsaw in Poland since 2023. And Stephen Capuadi was born in France. He got his first cap in June of 2025, and he did start 1 game. He kind of bridged the gap between the transition between Kalulu and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, played as a starter in the 2nd game in June of 2025 there. Started that game and was on the bench for the 5 others. So Steve Capuadi, I imagine if left back, if our left back, Joris Kayembe, is out, they certainly have enough coverage on the right side here to handle that missing player. Anyway, Steve Capuadi might be the guy. Moving down the list, though, we have Brian Baye, and he was part of the African Cup squad. We saw him there starting in Game 7, but let me see, he was on the bench for 1 of the matches after that, and not selected for 15 others. That includes the last 6 matches, so he seems unlikely at this point. Furthermore, he's unattached to a club since June of 2025, so that is never good on the resume when you're being considered for a call-up. So Brian Baye, possible but unlikely, I would almost say. Very unlikely given that he's not with the club. The player seemingly off the squad is actually a newcomer, Peter Chioso. He has 1 cap in 2024, but he hasn't been selected for the last 8 matches there. So we will get more detail on him if he is selected for the final squad, but we don't want to go into too much detail on the unlikely players here. All right, that is it for right backs, and we move on up to midfield. We're going to begin with the defensive end of the midfield, defensive and central midfielders. Let me just talk a little bit about the position. Then we have a 2-man midfield. That will probably be a 4-2-3-1 or something along that lines. 44% of the time, so just under half. But 56% of the time, or more than half, we have 3 players in the midfield. That could be usually a 4-3-3 formation. It could be a 4-5-1 formation as well. So there we have it. Let us look at the candidates. And yeah, the coding actually doesn't make a big difference here between defensive and central midfielders. We'll see them kind of interchanging. We have a definite candidate in Charles Piquel, and also definite is Ido Kayembe. And then we have a possible candidate in Ngalael Mukau. Ngalael Mukau. Sometimes I think he's just called Ngal Il as if it's two names, but Ngalael is his first name. Okay, I'm spending way too much time on that. Let's go to the seemingly off the squad player, Omanuke Mfulu, seemingly off the squad there. We'll introduce central midfielders too, because we're going to deal with them as one. And here we have a definite candidate in Samuel Mutusami, a likely candidate in newcomer Noah Sadiki, and a possible candidate in Errol Chibola. Okay, so actually not as many as some teams have there, a manageable amount of players. And now that we've introduced their names, let's look at the narrative over the last couple of years. In the Cup, it was usually a two-man defensive midfield 4-2-3-1, but when a third was added, generally it was an attacking midfielder, so we'll deal with that a little bit later. The central defensive pairing was Charles Piquel, he is coded as a defensive midfielder, and central midfielder Samuel Mutusami, so Piquel and Mutusami. In Game 7, the B team game there, Aaron Chibola replaced Piquel, though he, Chibola, got no starts after the Cup. Samuel Mutusami remained a fixture throughout the period. He missed only one game. Piquel started most games, but increasingly became a substitute, especially in the fall of 2025. Ido Kayembe, who had missed the Cup due to injury, came back in either to replace Piquel or to join Piquel and Mutusami in a three-man midfield. Noah Sadiki first joined in September of 2024, and after subbing in for a few games, increasingly started to get starts, effectively replacing Piquel, although he was not selected for the last two games. That's, excuse me. Noah Sadiki not selected for the last two games. Ngalael Mukau did get a start in the last game, and that was his second start. He had earned a start shortly after his debut in November 2024. So the midfield can effectively be characterized as Mutusami with a rotation of Piquel, Kayembe and Sadiki, and sometimes two of those players making up a three-man midfield. All right, let's look at the candidates then, beginning with Charles Piquel, the defensive midfielder who's at the definite level. He's been with Congo DR since 2023 with 29 caps and 1 goal, and he's 28 years old. He plays for Espanyol in Spain since 2025 and was with Cremonese in Italy for 3 years before that. So he has played in various countries, but mostly at the beginning of his career in Switzerland, because that's where he was born, and in fact played for Switzerland underage teams there. His first tournament, Piquel, was the 2023 African Cup. We saw he started all 7 games, except for the Game 7, the B team game there. Over the recent period, he started 10 of their 16 games, as well as subbing in for 5, and was on the bench for 1 other. So he was always called up, but as we saw towards the end of the period, became more of a substitute. The next definite candidate is Ido Kayembe, and he is with Congo DR since 2019 with 35 caps and 2 goals. He's 27 years old, and he plays for Watford in England since 2022. The African Cup 2023, he actually was selected for that squad, but he got injured and was replaced before the tournament, so didn't participate in the tournament. And over the recent period, Kayembe started 10 of their 16 games, and he also was subbed in for 5 and on the bench for 1. So exactly the same as Charles Piquel there. The possible candidate is Ngalael Mukau, and he's been with Congo DR since 2024, so came in this period. That's why his name is in orange on the graphic. And he has 6 caps and is just 21 years old. He was born in Belgium, but is currently playing for Lille in France since 2024. He moved from KV Mechelen in Belgium. That was his youth club as well. So he got his first cap in November of 2024, and he started 2 of their games. Subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 2, injured for 1, so not selected for 6 of the matches there. And he is a possible candidate, Ngalael Mukau. And finally, we have Omanuku Mfulu, and we won't go into much detail. He seems to be off the squad, having last appeared in the 2023 African Cup. He subbed into 2 games there, but was not called up afterwards. Moving on to the central midfielders, we have Samuel Mutasami. Now, this is a problem because we saw he's a real fixture in the midfield, but he's out with an unknown injury. That's a very recent injury in late November, and the injury is unknown, and he has an unknown return date as well. So that would be a big loss to them. He's been with Congo DR since 2019 with 52 caps and no goals, and is 29 years old. And Mutasami is playing for Atromitos in Greece since 2025, and he was with Sivasspor in Turkey for a year before that, and with Nantes in France for 7 years before that. Like many Congo DR players, he was born in France. But he's kind of an interesting guy. He has connections to Guadeloupe and Tamil Indians who moved to Guadeloupe as workers, as a group. So interesting history there. And he was a starter in the African 2023 Cup. That was his first tournament. And we saw he was a starter even of the B team there in Game 7. And over the period started 15 of their 16 games, and just 1 match that he was absent for. So Samuel Mutasami, a definite candidate, but an injury concern. Next, we have at the likely level, I put him in the wrong space on the graphic there, but he is a likely candidate, Noah Sadiki. He's been with Congo DR since 2024 with 13 caps and no goals, and just 21 years old. He recently moved to Sunderland in England, one of their purchases as they moved up to the Premier League in 2025, and had been with Union Saint-Gilloise in Belgium for a couple of years before that. Sadiki was born in Belgium and got his first cap in September 2024. He started 6 of their remaining 14 games, as well as subbing in for 4 and on the bench for 1. However, he was not selected for the last 2 matches, and that doesn't add up to the 13 caps that I said he had, so I'll have to check into that and correct it. But nevertheless, a likely candidate, but that last 2 matches, a bit curious. Next, we have Aaron Chibola. He's at the possible level, and he's been with Congo DR since 2018, but he only has 16 caps and 1 goal over those 7 years. He's 30 years old now and plays for Levadiakos in Greece since 2025. He's played in various countries, Greece, UAE, and Cyprus. He actually moves from club to club fairly quickly, doesn't seem to stay that long at any club, but he was on the roster of Aston Villa for 3 years from 2016 to 2019, although he was loaned out for the last year there. So that is a hint that he was born in England. He was played for the England under-18 team, and Despite being on team since 2019, he was not. He was on the preliminary squad actually for the 2019 African Cup, but not selected. He was for the 2023 Cup. There, we saw that he subbed into Game 7, the B team game. There, he was actually subbed out at halftime. And didn't start any of their 16 games over this period. He was just subbed in for one and on the bench for three. But we do have him as a possible candidate because he did appear towards the end. He appeared in the September 2025 games, so still seems to be under consideration there. Okay, those are all the candidates. There we've completed 2 to 3 positions, so that was a big chunk of our work done, and we move up now to the attacking midfield. They don't have any candidates at the left or right midfield, those positions kind of going out of style, even though they did use a 4-3-3 formation. We didn't see any particular pattern of players sticking to one position there. So we move up to the attacking midfield, and we begin with left attackers. So this will be cover a few positions. It could be an attacking winger in a 4-4-2 formation, could be an attacking midfielder in a 4-2-3-1 formation, or it could even be a left forward, left or right forward in a 4-3-3 formation there. And we do that because it's usually the same player, the same cast of players, regardless of the formation. So let's look at the candidates here. We have Yohan Wissa, who is a likely candidate. And also likely, we have newcomer Nathaniel Mbuku. And then 2 candidates at the possible level, Silas Katompa, also known as Silas Mvumpa, but I saw in the 2023 Cup there that they usually just called him Silas, so that's what I'll call him. He's a possible candidate, and we have a newcomer too in Brian Sipenga at the possible level. Let's talk about the position here. So Yohan Wissa was the starter in the Cup, and he was replaced in Game 7, the B team game there, by Silas Katompa, or by Silas. Silas is actually coded as a right attacking midfielder, and we will deal with him there, but he does actually play on the left almost as much as he does on the right. Yeah, so we did move him over here just to get his name in on this side. Wissa, after the Cup, he remained in the position until injury left him out of the October 2024 games. He did come back, but actually played more as a forward in the first half of 2025. But in September of 2025, he resumed his position in the left attacking midfield until, once again, injury prevented him from playing in the last 2 games. So Nathaniel Mbuku replaced him only once, but actually Mbuku got most of his starts in other positions, just once on this side, even though he's coded as a left attacker. But actually it was Silas, and even more so right attacking midfielder Michak Elia taking up the position when Wissa was absent. And we also had a couple of players showing up in single appearances when Wissa was absent there. And one of the reasons Wissa was absent, as we alluded to, was that he was out with a knee injury for the October games, that injury from late September, but he is expected to come back in early December, which is when we're doing this. So right about now, he's expected to come back. And I believe for Newcastle this weekend, he was a consideration, or there was talk about him perhaps playing. So I think he's pretty close. Yoane Wissa has been with Congo DR since 2020. He has 35 caps and 8 goals and is 29 years old. And as I just said, he plays for Newcastle. That's a recent move in 2025. He was with Brentford for 4 years before that, and mostly French clubs. Prior to that, Lorient from 2018 to 2021. And Yoane Wissa was born in France. His first tournament was the 2023 African Cup. We saw he started 6 of the 7 games, but not the B team game there. And over the recent period, he started 9 of their 16 games. He subbed in for 1. He was out with 2 separate injuries for 4 matches, and that included the last 2. We've discussed his injury. So 2 matches that he was absent or not called up for. So Yoane Wissa, a likely candidate, certainly they would like to have him. The other likely candidate is Nathaniel Mbuku, and he's been with Congo DR since 2024 with 9 caps and 1 goal, and he's 23 years old. And he was born in France, but actually plays in Germany for Augsburg. It's actually his second spell with Augsburg there, but he has been on loan to Montpellier in France since 2025. So immediately loaned out by Augsburg this time around. And Mbuku got his first appearance on the bench in October of 2024 and went on to start 4 of their remaining 12 games, as well as subbing in for 5. And just 2 matches that he wasn't selected for. So we have Nathaniel Mbuku as a likely candidate. Next, we have Silas Katompa or Silas Mvumpa. Silas, as we said, is coded as a right attacker, but we've moved him here. Actually, his only starts during the period were over here. I thought I saw him on the right side, but I have a note that he only played on the left here. Silas has been with Congo DR since 2023 with 18 caps and 1 goal and is 27 years old. He plays for Stuttgart in Germany since 2019. For quite a while, but for the last year here, 2024-25, he was on loan to Red Star Belgrade in Serbia. He's back with Stuttgart now, and before that was with clubs in France, but he actually was born in Congo DR, and he is part of the African 2023 Cup. He appeared in all 7 games, subbing into most of them. He did start games 3 and game 7 there. And Silas started 3 of their 16 games over the period. Part of the reason for that was because he was out for most of 2025 with an ankle injury. So just started 3 of their games, subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 2, and not selected for 6 matches, including the last 2 matches. So a bit of an interesting story about Silas Katompa. Maybe this is why he has different names, because he was fined and banned for 3 months for creating a false identity, which there's a long story behind that. And I thought he actually maybe played for another country. That was part of the story. Anyway, his age was different and his name was different on the thing. So he finally kind of owned up to it, and the Stuttgart thought that he would not get a penalty, but he actually was banned for 3 months over that issue. Anyway, Silas, that is his story, and he's at the possible level. The other possible level is Brian Sipenga, new to the team since 2025, but has earned 3 caps already, and he is 27 years old, and he plays for Castellon in Spain since 2024, and with Pecos de Ferreira in Portugal prior to that. He got his first appearance on the bench in October of 2025 and had started neither of their remaining two games, but he was subbed in for one and on the bench for one other. Here too, I have him down for 3 caps. I'm wondering actually if the information I had included the November games. I wonder if that's why some of the numbers are higher than they should be. But anyway, up to the end of October, Brian Sapenga with just the 1 cap there. And that is it for left attackers. And we move on to right attackers. And we begin with a definite candidate in Theo Bongonda. We also have a definite candidate in Michak Ilaya there. A right winger, a possible candidate in Grady Diangana. And we did move, as we said, Silas over, but he is actually coded as a right attacker, but we've dealt with him. And so we'll go down to the seemingly off the squad, Chadrick Akolo. Let's look at the narrative of the right attacking side. Theo Bongonda started the first 3 games in the 2024 African Cup there, as well as the last game. He came back for the B team game. But Silas started once and Michak Ilaya twice. Nevertheless, Theo Bongonda was the main player in the position over the period. However, he only accounted for 7 of the games, 7 of the 16 games there. Michak replaced him quite a bit, but Michak also played in other positions during the period. So he's more of a versatile attacker, Michak. And we also saw left winger Nathaniel Mbuku starting a couple of times over here as well. So despite all the candidates they have, the left winger came over a couple of times. Let's look at the candidates here. So Theo Bongonda is with the team since 2022. He has 31 caps and 6 goals. And is 30 years old. He plays for Spartak Moscow in Russia since 2023. But he was born in Belgium, so a lot of his early clubs were Belgium up until 2019. Up until 2022, he played for teams in Belgium. He too, with their underage teams there. The 2023 African Cup was his first tournament. As we saw, he was a starter there. But over this recent period, he only started 7 of their 16 games. He was subbed in for 4 and on the bench for 2, but out with 2 separate injuries, only for 2 matches though. Just 1 match that he was not called up for. So Theo Bongonda, a definite candidate. And also definite Michak Ilaya. I'm not sure if it's Elia or Elia. I actually think it's Elia. He's been with Congo DR since 2016. So he has 60 caps now. He's become a veteran with 12 goals, and he's just 28 years old. And he plays for Alanyaspor in Turkey since 2025. He was with Young Boys in Switzerland for 5 years before that. But he was born in Congo, and is actually one of the few players who played for the clubs in Congo. TP Mazembe, probably their biggest club there. He was with them for 3 years. He was not part of the African Cup in 2017. He was on the preliminary roster there, but was part of the 2019 African Cup. He was a starter in that one. But he did lose his starting position there. And in the 2023 African Cup, he was not a starter, but gained a starting position there. So Michak Ilaya has started 9 of their 16 games over this period, so actually a bit more than Bongonda. But as we've seen, he has played in different positions, so not all of his starts were on the right side over here. He started 9 games and subbed in for the 7 others, so a definite candidate for sure, Michak Ilaya. Next, we have possible candidate Grady Diangana, and he has been with the team since 2023, and he is 27 years old. He plays for West Bromwich in England since 2020 and was with West Ham in England from 2016 to 20, and with their youth club as well. He, though, was born in Congo DR. He just moved to England when he was 4 years old there, and did play for England underage teams. Also selected for the 2023 African Cup there, but he only started that B team game. That was his only action in the tournament. And he didn't start any games over this period, Grady Diangana. He was just subbed in for 2 and on the bench for 2. And not selected for 10 others, including the last 4 matches. So almost an unlikely candidate here, Grady Diangana. And finally, we have the seemingly off the squad Shadrach Akolo, and we won't go into detail on him. He was on the squad for the 2019 African Cup, but just the preliminary squad for the recent African Cup, and last appeared for the national team in September of 2025. I think that must be September 2024, because I wouldn't have had him as unlikely there, September 2024. So we'll tell you more about him if he actually is selected for the team. He's kind of interesting because he plays in Vietnam there. But that's it for the right attackers, and we move on to central attacking midfield. And even though they do use this position, we only have 2 candidates who are seemingly off the squad here. So the first of those is Gael Kakuta. Yeah, sorry, I'm just making my graphics catch up with me here. And the other one is William Balakwisha. So both of those players seemingly off the squad. Let's talk about the position a little bit, though. This position, it's usually a 4-2-3-1 formation where there's a central attacking midfielder, and the formation was used twice in the Cup, and it was Kakuta that filled it both times. He also, during the period, in the Cup, in one game, lined up as part of a 3-man midfield, so more of a central midfielder in that game as well. And over the course of this period, played as a central attacking midfielder in June of 2025. His only other start there was as a left attacking winger. After that, though, he kind of quickly deteriorated, if we can put it that way. He became a substitute and then went down to the bench and was not selected in 2025. So there in the fall 2024 games kind of dropped off the team. They did use this position of central attacking midfield a couple of times after, though, but it was central midfielders who filled the role. So we had Charles Piquel playing as an attacking midfielder and Ido Kayembe once as well. Anyway, Gael Kakuta seemingly off the squad. And we won't go into detail on him. He has a really long resume of clubs and was part of the African Cup in 2023, but last appeared in October 2024 on the bench there. The other candidate, William Balakwisha, doesn't have any tournament experience. He was on the preliminary squad for the 2023 African Cup and last appeared in November 2024. All right, we're ready to go on to forwards, and we have no candidates listed as secondary striker. So let's go straight to forwards and look at the candidates here. We have Fiston Mayele as a definite candidate, but I should say he's not a starter, so he doesn't really feature in the narrative there, but we'll tell you why he's a definite candidate when we get to his bio. We have as a likely candidate, or the first likely candidate, Cedric Bakambu. and also newcomer Samuel Asende, both of those at the likely level. And then two players at the possible level, Simon Banza and Jackson Muleka. Now, let's talk about the position over the period. Um, I think I said in section one that in 87% of games, this is just a single forward, but we do have two games where it was a double forward, two forwards. Let's see then. Cedric Bakambu started 5 of the 7 games in the Cup, and Johan Wissa replaced him once. We see that over the period too. Johan Wissa sometimes starting as a forward. Johan Wissa replaced Bakambu in Game 3, and Simon Banza replaced him in Game 7 for the B team game there. Bakambu was injured for the games after the Cup and never really fully regained the starting position there. Although he did come back later, we'll come to that. Newcomer Samuel Asende took over the spot after the Cup then, and he joined... He was joined twice in the attack in the double forward games, once by Michak Ilaya and once by Gail Kakuta. After October 2024, though, he only got a couple of starts, Asende, although one of them was the last game. Simon Banda got 2 starts in the fall of 2024, but honestly, after that, it became a bit of a revolving door of players making 1 or 2 appearances. But in September of 2025, it did look like Cedric Bakambu was coming back into the spot when he started both of the September 2025 games. However, in October, we saw 2 different strikers fielded, and one of them was the unlikely left attacking midfielder Nathaniel Mbuku popping up again. So things seem quite undecided there. Perhaps the November games will shed more light on who we might expect to start. So that's the story for forwards. Let's go and look at the candidates in a bit more detail here then. Fiston Mayele has been with Congo DR since 2021. He has 32 caps and 5 goals and is 31 years old and currently playing for Pyramids in Egypt, a pretty big club there, since 2023, and was with Young Africans in Tanzania, a pretty big club in that country too, and AS Vita in Congo DR, all of those big clubs in their respective countries. And Mayele was selected for the 2023 African Cup. He did start Game 3 there, but that was his only action. And over the recent period, he's only started 2 of their 16 games, but he's more of a sub. He's come in for 11 games as a substitute and was on the bench for the 3 others. So he was always selected. So even though he's not a starter, he is a definite candidate to make the final squad here, we think. Next, we have Cedric Bakambu, and he's been with Congo DR since 2015. So one of their most long, what am I trying to say? He's a player who's been with the team for a long time. Oh my God. He has 62 caps and 20 goals for the national team and is 34 years old and currently playing for Real Betis. No, he's playing for, sorry, my notes are a bit confused here. Anyway, Galatasaray in Turkey since 2023, but he may have moved to Real Betis. My notes didn't make it clear. But he's played in the UAE and in Greece. He's French-born, Cedric Bakambu, and played for their underage teams there. And his first tournament was the 2017 African Cup. He was actually a starter, but lost his starting position in that cup, but started and finished all games in the 2020-19 edition and started most of the games in the recent African 2023 edition. However, over the recent period, he's only started 4 games, 4 of their 16 games, but that does include 3 of the last 4 games. He was subbed in for 2, injured for 4, and not selected for 6 matches. Nevertheless, he's a big name for them, and we think he's at least a likely candidate. Next is newcomer Samuel Asende. Since 2024. He has 9 caps and 1 goal for the national team. He's 27 years old, so a bit late in joining. Also French-born, and plays for Augsburg in Germany. I think we have one other player on the squad there for that team. And we have several who are with the Paris Saint-Germain Youth Club, as he was. Samuel Asende got his first cap in June of 2024 and started 7 of their remaining games, as well as subbing in for 2. And he was on the bench for 6 matches. That includes the last 3 matches. And he was not selected for 1. So a bit worrying that he kind of lost his starting position over the last 3 matches. But he was on the bench, and we have him as a likely candidate. 2 possible candidates here. The first is Simon Banza. He's been with Congo DR since 2023 with 14 caps and 2 goals, and is 29 years old, so also a bit late in joining the squad. He plays for Al Jazeera in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, since 2025, and was with Braga in Portugal for 3 years before that. But most of his clubs prior to that were in France, because he's French-born, like so many players on the team. And Simon Banza was selected for the 2023 African Cup. His only start there was in the B team game, game 7, but he subbed into a few games as well. Simon Banza, over the recent period, started only 4 of their 16 games, but he was on the bench for 8, but not selected for 4 matches, including the last 3. So that is why we have him at just the possible level. Finally, we have Jackson Muleka. He has been with Congo DR since 2019 with 18 caps and 3 goals, and is 28 years old. Plays for Konyaspor in Turkey since 2025, and Besiktas in Turkey before that, for a brief time with a club in Saudi Arabia in between those 2 things. But he is actually also one of the few players who has played in Congo DR. He played for TP Mazembe there, and he's been around for a while. He was on the preliminary squad for the 2019 African Cup, but didn't make the final cut. Recently, he returned after a 2-year absence just at the end here in October 2025, and didn't start either of those games, but was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for the other. So Jackson Muleka perhaps making a comeback into the team. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our look at the players. We move into section 3, and we want to welcome new listeners to section 3 here, because we're releasing section 3 as a short version on part 1 of Congo DR's players. So in the full version, we introduce the candidates and their likelihood of making the squad. So if you want that information, or some kind of career information on the main players, you can listen to the full version. But here we're just doing a quick review of the candidates on the list that we produced in section 2, and we're not concerning ourselves with predicting starters at this point. That's something we'll do in part 2 of the mediacast there. And let's take a look at the list that we compiled. So we have manager Sebastian de Saber. He's been very successful, so we don't think his job is in any danger. We move on to goalkeepers. We have a definite candidate, or 2 definite candidates, in Lionel Mpasi and Dimitri Berthaud, and then a likely candidate in Timothy Fayulu. And then, yes, we're not going to mention candidates at the possible but unlikely level, or seemingly off the squad, but we will in part 2 if they come back into the picture. Let's move on to central defenders. We have a definite candidate in Chancel Mbemba, and 3 likely candidates, Dylan Batu Binsika, Axel Tuanzebe, and Rocky Bushiri. And that's all we have over there. So that's a pretty small cast for central defense. Moving over to the left back position, we have two definite candidates there, Arthur Masuaku and Joris Kayembe. Those are the only candidates on our list there. But we do have more in the right back position. We have definite candidate Gideon Kalulu and newcomer Aaron Wan-Bissaka, also a definite candidate. At the possible level, we have also a newcomer, Steve Kapuadi. Moving up to the midfield then, defensive midfielders, we have two definite candidates in Charles Piquel and Ido Kayembe, and a likely candidate in Ngalael Mukau there. And central midfielders, we have a definite candidate in Samuel Mutusami, and likely candidate Noah Sadiki. Also, we have a possible candidate in Aaron Chibola. Up we go to the attacking end of the field, and we begin with attacking midfielders on the left side. No definite candidates here, but we have likely candidate Yohan Wissa, and then also likely newcomer Nathaniel Mbuku. And we also have two possible candidates. The first one, Silas Katompa, sometimes called Silas Mvumpa. And we also have a newcomer in Brian Sipenga. On the right side of the attacking midfield, definite candidate Theo Bongonda and Michak Ilaya. None at the likely level, but at the possible level, we have Grady Diangana. And for central attackers, none, but I do want to mention Gail Kakuta, because I wouldn't be surprised to see him come back into the picture, but he seems to be off the squad based on participation over the last 2 years. Let's finish with forwards then. We have a definite candidate in Fiston Maele, even though he's really not much of a starter. The more likely starter is likely candidate Cedric Bakambu or Samuel Asende, both of those at the likely level. Asende, a newcomer to the squad over the past 2 years. And then we have two possible candidates, Simon Banza and Jackson Muleka. Okay, that is our look at the review of the candidates. Let's look at some big names who are off the squad, but actually we have nothing to report here. Since the last African Cup, we haven't lost any major players there, so we can move on to a review of injuries. We do have stuff to report here, and not good news for Congo DR. We begin with Joris Kayembe. He is a left back. We have him as a definite candidate, but he is out with a hamstring injury since around November 23rd, so quite recent, with an unknown return date. So we're not sure on that one. Hamstring injuries can be long-term, but sometimes they can be short-term as well. So we're going to put him as an unknown, Joris Kayembe. Next, an even bigger loss, we have Samuel Mutusami. He's been out with an unknown injury, again, very recent in late November there, and an unknown return date for him. He's a real staple in the midfield, so they'd be very happy to, very unhappy to lose him. And the last one is also a big name, Yohan Wissa. Better news here, though. He's out with a new injury, a knee injury, not a new injury. It is a new injury because it's his second injury during this term, but it's a knee injury from late September. However, he is expected back, well, around now. On December 6th, there was talk about him coming back just on the weekend here. I don't think he did come back, but he's close, so we'll put him in the expected back category. And of course, we can update these in section 2, and that actually leads us into our last order of business here, because we're going to skip any closing thoughts and go straight to the preview of part 2. So in part 2, we're going to know who was named to the preliminary and final squad. And we will go over the list that we created here and tell you which players made it and which ones didn't. And we'll highlight any notable non-selections, any surprise inclusions, and there's always a few new players to talk about here. We'll also give an update on injuries, very important for Congo DR here. And finally, we will do our spotlight review, which is our prediction of starters for the Cup. So that brings us to the end here, and we hope you will join us in part 2. That should come out in mid-December. So we'll see you then. We would like to thank Pixabay and Cold Fingers for the wonderful music used in this mediacast. The title of the piece is Eid Mubarak.